Susie Tomasi. Welcome to our talk show. We're launching a new live streaming talk show actually on a daily basis, and you happen to be one of the first guests. Welcome. This is Susie Tomasi. So bear with us, guys. We're setting up a live streaming daily show, and Susie is our guest today, and we would have different people, including politicians, business people. Susie is publisher of a magazine, the Biz Fashion magazine in Ontario, Canada. Quite a popular magazine. It's like 100 and something pages, glossy, full color. It's beautiful, and it really gives women a platform, right, to express themselves and tell their stories, and pictures, nice models and stuff like that. So we're launching this show now, and well, we launched it before, but we're getting into the show on a daily basis, and I would ask you guys to help support us, but also be patient with us and help us. We're gonna been having like technical difficulties and teething problems and stuff. It all seems to be worked out now. We're ready to go. Susie, can you tell us something about your magazine and your life? I know I read your story. She's publishing a book, by the way, which is why she's on the show, called what is it? Empowered in Heels, and it's fascinating. It's a story. It's a book of 10 stories, including hers, of women who overcame tremendous odds, and they came out as champions, as winners. And so we want her to tell her story. We want to talk to her. We want to have a conversation with her and see what her life is all about. What this show is all about is, my goal is we showcase the sheer beauty of being a human being. What does it mean to live as a human being? We're in Canada, but we're streaming globally. So we want to explore this whole idea with COVID, with the pandemic, emerging into a new society. Where are we going, and what kind of future is possible for us? And Susie, you've done a lot with your life, and you've gone through a lot, and we would love to hear from you. And tell us your story. Tell us something about your background.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm so honored to be, your first guest on your show. That's such
Well, the mayor of the city was the first guest.
The second guest.
But
I'm very delighted and honored.
Thank you.
I think we're connected for a reason. I believe in God that sends people to you at the right person, at the right time. Mm-hmm. And I got connected with you with Manu, and I have to be thankful to him.
Manu, you got to shout out.
So I was looking for a publisher for our book that's coming out that you mentioned, Empowered in Heels, with 9 other co-authors in this book, and they're all inspiring stories, and it's to push women to the next level of life. So I know everyone has a story, and it's how you use your story to describe what you go through and impact others with your story so that they don't go through what you go through. So I am a true believer of that, and a true honor to be on your show, and love doing what I do. I love empowering women and pushing them to the next level, and enjoying their life fully to live it truly as an impact and make a difference in other people's lives.
What caused you to start the magazine, Susie?
Our magazine actually was, I had a magazine called Empowered in Heels.
Oh, really?
And
okay, which is the book, right?
Yeah. So it was women collaborating in it about their stories. But then I had a lot of men ask me, when are you going to do something for men to get involved? And I said, okay, well, I've always been a true leadership of women. And I said, okay, how can I get men involved? So I came up with Biz and Fashion. I have a copy here. Mm-hmm. It's 100 pages, real high-end, glossy, great photography. This is how they got involved with photography for columns. I have makeup artists that we feature, beautiful models. We have columnists that will write in our stories, and we do different events. So if we go to an event, we cover that event and we feature them in the magazine. We also have a lot of advertising for other companies, so we can show them with our subscribers so that they can get known through our magazine. So it's a monthly magazine. It's kept me busy with COVID. I started it, we're on our 40th issue. I started before COVID, And luckily I did. That's why I always say, as a business entrepreneur, you always have to have several buckets. Don't concentrate in one. I had the clothing line and no one was going out, so no one was purchasing gowns to go dress up. So my clothing line is called Susie Q Jewels, and we donate to women's shelters across Ontario, and we do fashion shows. And that's how I met Manu, because he has...
Manu is my friend. We're in business together, but he owns a restaurant called Crazy Jack in Oshawa.
Yeah, so
just
go check it out. They do a comedy night, right, on Fridays.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, people outside of Oshawa wouldn't go to Crazy Jack, so...
But anyways, support local is the main
Yeah,
focus of
yeah.
the magazine, is to help other businesses with our subscribers that we have. So, and with our clothing line, we really had a halt on fashion shows and any events and any ways of giving back. And a lot of people were buying gowns to go to any outings. So that's where the magazine comes into play. So part of the proceeds go to the shelters that we send out monthly. So every time you buy a magazine, just think you're giving back to the community as someone in need today.
Susie, so out of the magazine came Empowered in Heels, your book, which my company is publishing. We're
Yay.
honored. We're honored to do that. I'm reading the stories of these 10 women who came through so many odds, including immigrants. There's a story of one from Romania who came to Canada and really made a big difference. Susie, can you tell us about the book, but also zero in? I read your story, and it's really, really inspiring. Could you tell us something about your story? You yourself have an interesting story from Venezuela and Trinidad and all that. You want to get into that? A bit like
Sure.
that?
So when I did Empowered in Heels magazine, I shared my story. A lot of people don't know why I support the women's shelters strongly and passionate about it. It's because I have a history. My father was an amazing man, but he was an alcoholic. So when he drank, he would become like Jekyll and Hyde. So I saw a lot of abuse when I was a child, verbal abuse and physical abuse. And I saw my mom struggle a lot with my father, and us as a child seeing it. So we did end up going to the shelters a couple of times, but my mom eventually went back to my father. So it was like our safe haven when we were at the shelters, but unfortunately at that time there wasn't too much counseling involved for the mothers and the children. So that's why I am so passionate and having that two things combined in the shelters, so that women will not go back to the cycle of abuse, because it does trail through. So with my story, I always said as a child, "Oh, Mom, why did you put up with a man like that?" And then when I got married the first time in Venezuela,
You were 17 years old?
yes, I was 17 years old. My mother had to sign for me. And it was my first love, and he was abusive. He didn't have to drink, but he was abusive verbally and very controlling, and it's like the pattern just trickled through. Then from there we came to Canada. It was annulled because I was underage, and he stayed in Venezuela and I came to Canada. And then I went to school here, and then I ended up marrying again, and it trickled through again. So until I found the cycle to break that pattern, that's when I actually started to live my life and value that I deserve better in life, and that I don't need to support what I saw when I was a child. Because sometimes when you're a child, you just learn things to accept. And those are the things that I noticed that I was accepting with the partners that I was with, is that I would accept their abuse in a way that you learn from a childhood to cover, because that's what my mother did, cover for that person, or try to help that person, or make them change, or maybe if you give them like the love and care, they'll change and not do it again. But it doesn't stop until that person gets counseling and yourself get counseling. That's when you'll break that pattern of abuse. and then it doesn't trickle through to your children, because I am the trickling through of my mother. So my kids could have been the trickling through of what I went through. So that had to stop.
But it continued later in your life, right?
Well, okay. I was married. I know, when
Susie,
I was 22.
this might sound a bit going back into your past, but I
was married at 17 and then got married again at 22. And then was married for 25 years. And then my son was 14, I recall, 14, and he was picking up the patterns of his father. So there was one time that was my opening eye, because I left him for the third time. This was my third time that I left him. And then it was because of my son. He grabbed me by the neck. And imagine you seeing your son grabbing you by the neck and seeing that image of your husband doing that. So it was my epiphany of saying, no, I can't continue in this cycle of abuse, because my kids were going to follow that track and trail, which I wouldn't have wanted as a mother. So that was the last straw, I guess you would say. And I decided to get separated fully and officially and get that counseling for me and my son. And we've been separated for almost 8 years now, and hopefully we'll be divorced soon. But so this is my journey.
So Susie, how did you move from this situation of having to overcome all these tremendous odds of an abusive man in your life and even your childhood, and also being able to survive that, build your own life independently to take care of 2 kids and still build a business? How did you become an entrepreneur? How did you scale from just surviving into not only sustaining yourself but moving into that place where you actually scale into something bigger?
That's a really good question. I found that I empowered myself by having my second business. I was working with corporate. I worked there for 25 years, and they were very great. Honestly, if I didn't have them, I wouldn't have been able to go to the court battles and so on. But I felt like I was stuck in a job that I wasn't growing, or I wasn't doing something that I was so passionate about doing. So I started my business with Susie Q. Jewels, which is the clothing line. And then we gave back to the women's shelters, which was really even more impactful for me, to have a business that I can give back to the community and where I was situated once in my life, right? So I think that really empowered me to be able to have that force of having my son not wanting him to be an abuser or a victim, because I became a victim. I followed my mother's trail. She was a victim. Or he could have been an abuser, which I would have wanted for never to happen, right? So I think with having my business in play, it helped me to empower myself to be able to sustain my kids, have food on the table, and continue onwards and keep on going successfully. And there were doors that closed down, of course they are, but you keep on trying different ways to get those doors open, and then from there it just keep on it, keep positive, and keep resilient, and it all comes out into play.
What advice would you give to a young girl, 17 years old or 22 years old, or any woman out there? I know you do a lot of work for the charity, and you raise resources for women going through a hard time, for the shelters and those places. But what advice would you give to an individual woman who is now, we are speaking to people all over the world on different social media platforms, and what advice can you say, despite nationality, despite culture, despite age, what human advice would you give to any woman who is going through a hard time in life?
I would say you deserve the best in life, and always go for the best. You will have times that when you're a child that you think, or you were told that you can't do it. Put it in your mind that you can. because whatever you put in your mind will come to fruition. Keep positive, keep resilient. I'm not saying it's going to happen one day to another and become successful one day to another, but have a goal to get there and don't get stuck, basically. Every year you have to put some kind of goal to master something and get better in yourself.
Mm-hmm. So you have a number of businesses. You have your clothing line, which is and your fashion shows. You had Divas in Durham.
Yes.
And she invited me to be a speaker, which is weird in itself because it was all women event. Anyway, thank you for that.
But he had fun. Come on, he wants to do it again.
and now you're doing a book, right? Empowered in Heels, which is a fascinating title actually. Empowered in Heels. Could you tell us how you manage all this? Like you do the magazine, which is not an easy magazine with 100 and something pages. You have to organize photographers and stories and designing and all those things. The business side as well, and running a charity helping marginalized or abused, is it? Women?
Abused women.
Yeah. How do you do all of that? And raise 2 kids, like one a teenager.
I have to be blessed. I think it's a management of your time and your priorities. And if you love what you do it with joy. And honestly, I wake up every day saying, thank God I can do what I do, and I love doing it. And it just works out. Honestly, if you have that passion and that drive and you push yourself, because honestly, I have nights that I don't go to sleep until 1 o'clock sometimes because I have deadlines. But it's my passion. I love doing it. I would have done it for another company, but at least I'm getting that reward of giving back and making a difference in someone's life. Because with our brand, it's not just about the clothing. It's about empowering women to love themselves and really fully gain that control of loving yourself, not being so conscious of how you look. It's what you have inside that really counts. I think I come across so many models that they look amazing outside, and if they don't have a good heart or inner core, they never get that success. And I think a successful person has that balance of having the inner balance of loving and giving. And if you can give, make someone else's life different, it doesn't take 2 cents. Honestly, it's not all about money. It's the time that you can give someone a chance in doing something different.
Susie, you actually practice one of the things that we set out to accomplish in this company, Qualped Corporation, which is out of your story. We really believe this. We believe to those people watching us, out of your story, you can publish a book and it completely transforms your life. It really does. And Susie, you've had such an amazing adventure of life, despite everything that went on. It's not always easy, but it's a nice adventure. And you've lived in Canada, Venezuela, Trinidad, in the Caribbean.
My mom did. Yeah, my mom did. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's such as a Canadian woman, do you think you would have been able to accomplish this anywhere else?
I think God gives you things that you can manage, and I think every phase in your life, challenging or not, it's a kind of a gift. I think if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be where I am today. Mm-hmm. Because it made me stronger and made me a go-getter, never stop, always focus, always have that mind of you're going to get there, or you got there, better said. Mm-hmm. It doesn't let me give up. So if I would have been happy all my life, it wouldn't have given me that challenge of how I can overcome those struggles. And every time something does occur, I'm not going to drown in a glass of water, because I can manage to sustain myself throughout those traumas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you say to somebody who says to you, why do all that you do? Why not just enjoy your life? You had a childhood that it was a little bit traumatic, and maybe a lot traumatic. Why did you want to do more?
I really want to make a difference in other.
Where is that coming from? Like what?
That inner core of wanting to make someone else not go through what I went through. And to have that backup or support that I think my mother needed at that time that she lacked in. So if I can give that support and that hand to someone else not to go through what I went through in that sense, make their lives easier, that is such an accomplishment for me. There's no reward in helping others. No better reward than helping others, honestly.
Is it actually making a difference? Do you think? Is it?
It is. I've touched.
How many women you think?
I've touched so many women's lives. They've been to a part of their lives that they thought they were not beautiful, and they thought that they were not deserving to the best things in life. And if you see them today, they're like accomplished, successful, and striving. And it's not that I use that as my accolade. Oh, I helped you. No, it's just that inside of me.
It's your impact, right?
I love, and I have people approach me. Where do you get this energy? Why do you have this passion to help people? I said, because you know what? We were put on this earth for a reason. And if we're gonna just enjoy our lives and not make a difference, what's the point of living? I want to make a difference that when one day, if God takes me, I could say, well, you know what? Susie really pushed me to the next level, and today I am here and my family are together, or I've accomplished to be a business owner because of you. So those are the most impactful things that you can leave to others in mind, right? So making a difference is a big priority for me, and I even tell my kids, I say, I want to leave a legacy. I don't want to be someone that was just put on this earth for just a momentary thing. I want to really make an impact, and hopefully someone will carry Susie Q. Jules and Empowered in Heels and Biz and Fashion forward if anything happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I keep telling my son, who's now 14, that one day he has to take over my company and make it global actually. So yeah, we need to leave a legacy. I'm always looking for people who can take on the future. Susie does an important thing that we talk about, and you'll hear me talk about a lot on this show, which is we have to take our story, whatever happens to us in life, whether we could control it or not. We're not victims. It's what happened.
We're warriors. Yeah.
It's just that things that happen to us, right? These things happen. We might not have had control over it, but they happen to us. And it makes our story, our life, right? What we do with that is not cast it aside, Susie. We don't just say, oh, this is what happened to me and look what happened to me, We take it and we turn that dirt into gold, into diamond. How do we do that? With what Susie's doing, which is writing and publishing a book. That's what she's doing. Empowered in Heels is a book of where 10 women, including Susie herself, tell their story in 10 chapters. And it's going to be a fascinating read. It is for me as the publisher, because I'm looking at those stories now. And I want to get the message across, Susie, that everybody has a story, and the story that you have is your asset. Mm-hmm. It's your most important asset. Your asset is, we tend to think of assets as financial assets and real estate and physical stuff external to us. But really, our most important assets are within us. Our human capital and our story. So if we can take our story and convert it, today you can convert your story into an ebook, into a YouTube channel, into a Pinterest page. You can do so much with it. People are doing it on Instagram even, and Facebook pages and stuff. So the point I'm making is that Susie had such a dramatic story in her life. Her adventure was all over the place and traumatic and joyful and everything, but she's turning it into something beautiful. She's turning her life and her story into an asset that would be a legacy that her sons can inherit and her generations can inherit. And that's what we need to do. We need to encourage ourselves. When we wake up in the morning and we go through our day, we need to say, you know what? My life is valuable. I have a unique story. I'm created for a purpose. I'm created to do something with my life, to leave something that generations coming after me can learn from my life. The mistakes I made, the things I failed at, even those things, they are life lessons. Susie, it's really, really amazing to have you here. We're going to have shows with Susie every so often, maybe once a month or something. And she has, you have so many beautiful women around you, these models and photographers taking pictures and everything. So I hope she lends that kind of aura, luxury to this show and to what we're doing. Can you tell us about the magazine and what kind of stories you tell and the next edition that is coming up?
Sure. So basically, I try to gear towards empowering topics. So it's about self-love, how you can back yourself up on business. We have business topics. We have best apps, 10 best apps to download. We have beautiful ladies. I have to give thanks to all the models that collaborate with me, because honestly, if it wasn't for our collaboration, we couldn't do what we do. And the photographers are phenomenal. And honestly, look at the magazines, book your photographers, because they are amazing photographers that give back. And as I mentioned, proceeds go to the women's shelters. So this magazine, I try to do it as an empowerment magazine. I help teens to self-love. We had a topic about bullying, cyberbullying, which is a big issue. I try to find topics that are really relevant to helping others and things that are happening. We had what our last issue was, actually I think it's in this issue that we did it for July or August. We had the Orange T-shirt Day, because those are things that myself I did not know about, and we weren't taught in school about the trauma of the Indigenous. And those are things that we need to teach, that sometimes we're not, the truth doesn't come out until the end, and now we're finding out the truth. And these are the things that I use my magazine to impact other people in those topics that are happening.
So the world looks at you today and sees this magazine publisher and fabulous person putting on fashion shows and, rubbing shoulders with models and all that. Can I take you back a little bit to what is it like growing up with an alcoholic father?
It's a roller coaster.
Sorry, Susie. One of the reasons I'm asking is we live in Oshawa, in the city of Oshawa here in Ontario, and for those who are not from here, it's the social situation in the city is heartbreaking. A lot of alcoholics, a lot of drug addicts.
It happens in Toronto also.
What's the drug problem called again?
There's a lot of addicts, right?
Yeah, there's a name for it. This is a global pandemic going on with drug addiction.
Yes.
Painkiller.
Mental health.
It causes a lot of mental health problems, and we see a lot of people on the street in our city. It's so heartbreaking. Some of them you become familiar with because you see them every day driving by. Susie, a lot of these people actually go through what you went through as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of paint a picture what it is growing up in a home like that?
It's tough. There were days I didn't want to go home. When I went to the door, if I heard the music loud, I knew my father was already drinking. So there were days I didn't even want to go in because I knew my father was already in bad shape, and we know that something would happen. So I think if I can help others out there that are going through what I went through, is to be strong and get that counseling. And honestly, just because my father was an alcoholic, it doesn't mean I have to follow that trail. I think you need to better yourself and find other ways that you can impact your life and become a way different life from what your parents were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give a better example to your kids, because you don't want them to trickle through and have that life because I had a bad life, my kids are going to have a bad life.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not fair. I think you have to put that ownership on you
Mm-hmm.
and get that counseling and, get get that support. Someone can help you. If you need to contact me and I could try to support you and help you and guide you, I would do that. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there that want you to be in a better situation. So don't lose yourself, and don't think you deserve to be in that trail that your previous parents were. Think that you deserve more, and that was a big thing, so that you can have more in life.
Yeah. Can you remember any incident that really shaped your life from
my father?
Well, from your childhood, I guess.
From my-
Even being married at 17 in Venezuela.
Well, I cried when my parents took me to Venezuela because I didn't
They took
know-
you from Canada, eh?
That's right. The reason they took me from Canada is because they lost it all, basically. My father was a very successful man. He was an electrician, well known. He worked for the Royal York Hotel. And unfortunately, he got together with friends and drank mostly all weekends. And he built a cottage, a beautiful 5-bedroom home in Muskoka Lake. At that time, no one was there. He built it from his own hands with his friends, and they would drink there and drink. And he just became an addict. And I think it's because of his I didn't understand why until I was older, that I started to analyze, because you become more mature and you start to wonder, okay, why did this person do this? And why would my father, do this, ruin his whole life and lose everything? And then you start to think, okay, well, he was there was 2 brothers, so his mother gave more attention to the eldest brother, who at that time they didn't have a lot of finance. And they had to send one to university and the other to college, technical school. So my father was kind of wanting to be a dentist, and he had to go to electrician, technical school. And his brother became an engineer. And then on top of that, his brother, after graduating and being this kind of the spoiled guy in the house, his mother gave a lot of attention to him. He committed suicide. So that caused my father to have a lot of depression. And I think that's where the alcohol may have come in. And then hanging out with the wrong crowd just implemented it more. And then he lost himself, and he lost everything. He lost his homes. My mother put up so much with my father. I don't know how she did it, because I call her my superwoman, but she was my mother and father, and I ended up becoming like her and being a mother and father, guiding myself through my life until I really recognized that I deserve more than that.
You said that your mom still loves your dad. If you made that comment. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, because in the eras, the olden eras, I would say that was kind of like a true love. And it wasn't like today's love, like you jump from one pool to another pool. But she came to Canada with no one, and my grandmother was really strong. So very strong-minded and very strict. So my mom, if she had any boys that would like her, she would move my mom to different countries. So first she went to Trinidad. That's where Trinidad came into play.
Okay.
And then she was supposed to go to school there. And then it looks like she got caught partying down in Trinidad, because they say it's the best country to live in. And then afterwards, my mom shifted her to Canada because she wanted her to learn English and go to school here. That's when she met my father. So my mom was alone here. Really didn't have that motherly love, I would say. If you analyze it, like, she didn't have that motherly guidance of love and stuff. She was in a country, she didn't know English much. And then she met my father, so it was her first love, and that's how I think she fell into play and getting stuck there. And
well, stuck, I don't know. Despite the dysfunction, she loved him. That's what love, right?
Yeah.
That's despite him.
She and you know what? We had our father cremated when he died with cancer, and she kept his ashes until maybe 3 years ago. We finally buried the ashes and departed, because she said she wanted to be buried with him. And I'm here, but Mom, like, I couldn't understand, like, with so much pain and so much, you would think, we wouldn't have that love. But
You would think she
still
might
loves him.
hate him, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Today, as it's still today, but I think she also has a lot of trauma that she needs to deal with.
Okay,
Too.
okay.
So,
We all know. I mean,
Yeah.
human nature being what it is.
yeah.
Yeah. And yet you became, it fascinates me, it really, really fascinates me that you publish a magazine and you're putting out a book and you run a charity and you mobilize girls and models and give them a sense of confidence and a sense of self-worth. Like, what a life, Susie. It's amazing.
I truly love my life. Honestly, I wake up every day and say, thank you, God, I can do what I'd love to do. I wish I would have done it earlier, but I think things happen when they happen.
Yeah.
And then you just push forward and take that leap. If I didn't take the leap, I don't know where I would be today. I'd probably be in the corporate still. But I love it. It all works out. So just keep focused. As I mentioned, don't put your eggs in one bucket. Always diversify. That's what I was in finance. So have different businesses on the go, because you never know when one's going to flop. And with COVID, a lot of people worked on one business and depended on that business, and if it flopped, they were done, right? So luckily, I had my 3 or 4 different businesses going. I was a host of Empowered in Heels show too, and we were interviewing women and how they had their business running and how they can give some advice to others and what challenges did they have as an entrepreneur. Because when I got into business 20 years ago, it was hard for a woman to be in business.
Wow.
Today
Really?
it's easier because there's more funding involved. But
What advice would you give somebody a woman who wants to get into entrepreneurship?
I would really investigate as to what you're getting into, first of all, and do something you love. Because if you're going to get into something that you really don't love, you won't put the passion in there as in that drive that you will. Because it is a lot of work being an entrepreneur. And you have those good days that you have like abundance of funds, and then you have those days that you'll have like, oh goodness, it's up and down, right? Just stay focused, keep learning, keep developing yourself, and learn as much as you can every day, because of entrepreneurs, you have multi hats.
Yeah.
And learn from others, get a mentor. Best thing I could give an advice, and I do mentorship programs, is helping someone not to go through the struggles that you went through when you started your business.
Do you think at some point, I know Venezuela is going through a hard time now, do you think at some point, because your mom is from Venezuela,
Yeah.
right? Do you think at some point maybe you would go to Venezuela and mentor some women and try to help?
I would love that.
Would you
Right
also-
now, I actually send boxes there.
Oh, you do?
Because,
You do? Okay.
Yeah, so there is some donations that I do get that, the shelters will not take.
Okay.
I will send it off to Venezuela, and we'll
Okay.
send boxes, like 8 boxes a month or something.
Really?
Like that to
Wow.
them. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because they right now are struggling. It's like Cuba, I would say.
Okay.
There's that they can't find anything there, and they've been struggling for a while now.
How do you compare, given your knowledge of Venezuela, how do you compare women in Venezuela to the women here in our city who are in shelters and going through a hard time?
You don't see the shelters in Venezuela. They don't have that.
Well, they have women, I think, in the public on the street going through a hard time in their homes. Here, women are mostly going through a hard time in the shelters, and if they went through some kind of trauma at home, like abuse and all those things.
Well, if there's abuse in Venezuela, they wouldn't. There's really nothing in. Well, when I lived there, it's been almost 20 years now. No, 30 years. There was no shelters in play.
Okay.
So basically, they would call the police. The police would grab the person, put them in jail for a bit, and then they would be released.
Okay.
There was really no counseling in place for abusive women. But I would say the women there are more powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have their attitudes in a way that they they know how to defend themselves. So
Mhm.
it's way different
Here,
from
no?
here. Well, here they do. It just depends. It depends in that cycle of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and how that person, the other person has you.
Okay.
I find when you're in an abusive relationship, you become controlled. So
Mm.
gradually they isolate you from your friends.
Okay.
They isolate you from growing. They
Mm.
isolate you from everything, right? So they want you to be in that cycle of work, home,
Okay.
and you lose yourself, basically. Over there, I didn't see that women would lose themselves. They actually empower themselves by taking care of themselves. And in Venezuela, it's very vanity, right? So you
Okay.
have to look really good. Because,
Really?
yeah, it's a vanity thing, right? Here you look good too, but it's not as impactful as there.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty really calls a big play there. So the men know if they don't shape up, that they're gone, right? So I think that's where the difference is in play.
Okay. What's the next edition? You have a focus for the next edition for your magazine?
Yes, our next edition is the Halloween one. We covered the Greek International Film Festival, so we have a section there. We have Divas in Durham, and our speaker will be in there, so look out for him. We also have having your back and knowing how to have your back. So
Okay.
that's a great topic for you to read in there if you're looking
Okay,
for something
okay.
too.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the women who are featured in the book Empowered in Heels?
I would love to.
How come nobody ever published a book before called Empowered in Heels? It's quite enticing, that title.
Well, I found it my Empowered in Heels is because when my parents took me to Venezuela, I didn't consider myself to be like a supermodel or beautiful or whatsoever. And when I went to Venezuela, they actually had me as, I competed and I modeled there. It was one of my best phase in life. So I learned how to walk the catwalk. I learned to dress up, the way that, the modern fashionable way. Because at that time,
In Venezuela.
was very
Oh.
fashionable, one of the
Wow.
fashion sectors of South America. Today,
Oh.
I can't compare that, but yeah, so I learned so much in Venezuela about beauty and looking good, and everyone looked at me as, I competed for being a queen there, and it really empowered me to be able to accomplish that. So when I came to Canada back, I went to school as a laboratory technologist. I kind of left that fashion industry for a bit
Okay.
and got into my working of corporate and whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got into the making of jewelry, because that's how Susie Q Jewels started, is when I took broken jewelry and I would revamp them.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone then started to do jewelry, so I had to go back to the
Oh,
drawing
okay.
board. So one day I'll do a book of that, of my chores of being an entrepreneur, but that's to come. And then from there, I came with a clothing line, and honestly, I hit the button. I hit my passion. I always loved dressing up in the office, and everyone would come to the office and see what I was wearing, because I was good in being frugal and mixing and matching the clothing I had.
So you made a business out of your
I did.
liking to dress up.
So basically, I pinpointed the areas that I was lacking because there was times that I was so stressed at work because I dealt with investments and pensions
Okay.
that I would go stress shopping.
Okay.
So I would buy clothing and have them in my closet with the tags, and I said, okay, there has to be so many other women that do the same. So that's when I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it took off, basically. It went really well.
Yeah, do you want to mention some things about the women in the book? The other women whose stories are told in the book?
They are incredible women. I am so blessed. I get to meet so many women in my life, and men, amazing men too. But I really connect with empowering women, and sometimes they are sent to me for a reason. And there is 9 co-authors in my book, and honestly, even the models become my friend. I become their mama bears in a way. But the 9 co-authors, they're amazing women, and they've had their challenges in life, and they're so successful and admiring, and they are just that sisterhood of women that want to support and help others. So basically, I approached these ladies and I said, okay, I've been wanting to do this, but I don't want to do it alone. And I want to put my story out there because everyone doesn't really know my story, because I don't like them to look at me as a victim. I want them to look at me as a warrior, as that was the past, and today I am where I am today, right?
So, as a warrior.
As a warrior, basically. And these are the women that I went up to, and each of them have such a different story, and it's so impactful that you would want to read this book. Even to give to your daughter to read, it would be a gift that no one else can give you. Like, we have topics about cyberbullying that occurs so much in teens today. We have topics about taking your passion and driving your past into something that you love doing today, which is the photography of one of our writers. And finding yourself as a woman, because there's times when we have children, we forget about ourselves and our needs. And one story there really impacted me until I read it. It gave me the shivers, because it said, wow, I remember being there, that I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I needed to do. Like, I knew what I needed to do as a mother, but I also forgot about myself as being a woman. So that really drove to me. And then we have someone coming from a different country and starting new here. And that is such a impactful story, as to where she has her mom sick, and she comes to Canada, and she just, evolves herself here so much to help her mother in another country. And then we have the cultural impact also of color, of how color differentiates your tone of how people portray you. So each one of the stories are so different. There's another writer that she was in a close controlled family, different religion, and then she had to pull herself from that and start all brand new.
Wow.
And start her life brand new. And
we're going to tell the stories of these
successful.
people, right?
And we're going to interview each one of them. I
wow.
would love
on this show. We're going to interview each one. Nice. Okay.
Yes,
good.
For sure. But it's so much nicer to hear the stories from them than from me, because they lived it. And I think everyone that writes a story, you really need to get the core out of it, of the truth and authentic self of yourself.
What I like about the ironic thing about telling stories, our life story, not necessarily our life story, but a lesson that we learn from our life. That's the idea for a book, and it's the same idea in Susie's book, which is Empowered in Heels. It's the life lessons that Susie drew from her life and these other women. And so we live to learn. That's what we live for. We live, we love, we learn. And what do we do with it? We don't want to go to we live in an age of technology, of literacy, of the world being what it is today, not 200 years ago, not even 50 years ago. We're so blessed as a human society, despite pandemic and passport vaccine and all those things. We're a very, very blessed human family on the earth today. And if each of us, our goal as a company, I've set out to do this. Every single day I wake up, Susie, my prayer and my goal and my commitment, what I spend my day doing, is setting up a platform for every human being to write a book and publish before they die. Because everybody is about, I need to get a house, I need to get a car, I need to get a career, I need to work. But you work and pay bills, and you end up depressed like your dad, and you end up living a life of unfulfilled years of unfulfilled living. We want to change that, and the way to change it is we become authors of our future. And this is something that we are setting out to do with your the authors of your book and yourself and other people as well, that we are authors and designers of our life. They don't tell us what to do. We live in a society where they say, oh, the government is saying do this, and government is imposing passport and blah blah, you can't travel, you can't do anything unless you listen to the government, and they have us under surveillance. And now there's this big thing of Facebook going through the whistleblower story in the United States. Those things could be stressful, taking them on, the weight of them. Let's go into who we are as individuals, as human beings. Let's go inside ourselves. Find the life lessons in our stories. In our story, actually, in our life adventures, the things that happen to us. Let's pick the life lessons, the fruits that we can find. Put them together in an ebook, or in a YouTube channel, or in something. Leave something for the world. There's so much joy in that. And we're committed to make that happen trust me, for every single adult human being on the face of this planet. And by God's grace, we're going to accomplish that vision. Myself and my team members, we will commit our lives to that. Susie, thank you so much. Would you want to leave our viewers with any thoughts of wisdom, life lesson, advice?
Sure. I would like to thank you for having me on your show. First
Absolutely.
of all, Sean, it's an honor. Honestly, I think everyone should live their authentic self and forget about fake. Forget about having all those materialistic things, and just truly love yourself for what you are, and find the values in you so that you can leave a path for someone else and helping them. So leave a little sparkle in their life, and it's so true. Like, if you can give a smile to someone or say hello to someone, you never know that you may have changed their day by just doing one act of kindness. So if you can do one act of kindness a day, don't think twice to do it.
Yeah. One act of kindness. We have a lot for you guys. Believe it or not, we are doing this live show. I know it's going to take a while to develop and build up an audience, but those of you who are watching us, I appreciate it. I know time is valuable, and we don't expect people to just take their time and stare at us on the screen, but we want to impart to you. We want you to benefit from what the content that we're putting out, the words that we say. So this show is going to be a daily talk show online, and hopefully over time we build up an audience. And the whole idea, the goal is that we inspire you to become designer of your life, to become the author of your future, and to not look at what is going on in society, what is going on in your tradition, in our, people saying to us, oh, this is how you should live. No, let's design out the life that we want, that we desire. That's what we want to do with the show. And we have a lot coming. I have 10 books of my own that are in the publishing pipeline. Susie has her book, Empowered in Heels, and we have some other books coming out. We're a book company. We have an e-commerce site that we'll be advertising eventually, where you can go on. Right now we have about 170 ebooks on that site. Plus we have our own book technology, Sims Books, which you'll hear about more often. Anyway, thank you so much. Hope we didn't bore you too much. You find something valuable from the show. And Susie, we'll see you again back here very, very soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it.